Hey folks, welcome to another VR video. Before we get started, I want to thank the MetaQuest Ambassador Program for the hardware used in this video. And we're going to be checking out a really cool title that explores my childhood. It's called TRU VR. It's available right now on itch.io. And we're going to jump in a little bit into my experience as we're exploring a bedroom that you might have had as a child. There's a very cool making of Star Wars poster there. Lots of video game posters and magazine articles on the wall, on the ceiling. More posters on the walls for TV and toys and things I would have loved in the 80s when I was a child. And this week I'm focusing on things that are recreations of the past, essentially, in virtual reality. So we're going to turn around a bit here. There's a TV show on over here. An old NES. It's a Love's commercial, a diaper commercial. A beanbag chair here. This is amazing. Just this room itself. There's a TIE fighter up there. An old school VCR. Another ad. An old PC with a floppy disk drive. Yes, that is not just a save icon. That is a floppy disk with homework on it. It looks like. Looney Tunes, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Sonic. I mean, this is amazing. It's even got some Red Dwarf, so this person might have been British or a fan of BBC television. We used to have it on our local PBS station, or public broadcasting station, here in the U.S. Flight of the Navigator is a classic Disney film. We've got a Space Invaders machine over here. I don't think we can play any of these. I don't know. Let's try it. Let's see if we... No, can't play the machine, but you can actually see the demo going. Got Dino Riders there, an AT-AT toy there. This is sweet. But that's not really why we're here. The Wind in the Willows. Nice. Another ad here. But we're going to hit this button. And we are now transported to the real reason why we're here. And it's not this recreation of a DeLorean. It's actually the recreation of a Toys R Us. And we're going to walk into this Toys R Us store. Toys R Us is something that, as a North American child, I grew up with. We had lots of toy stores as a kid. This was pre-Amazon. This was before everything was online. I will mention there's a menu over here. You can actually change a bunch of details. So you can force grab. You can play seated or standing. We're seated, obviously. We've got smooth turn on. You can change the year to 1984 or 1985. We're just going to keep all of these settings as the default. And then the car outside can either be the TMNT van, the Batmobile, or the DeLorean. I like the DeLorean since this is essentially a time machine. In fact, this is made by a group calling themselves Time Machine VR. Inside the store here, at the front counter, or near the front counter, they always had these bubble gum and candies. So you're shopping with your parents as a kid, and you can pick them up. So you got Hubba Bubba bubble tape, you got Bonkers, Fruit Stripes. The one I would have grabbed for would have definitely been the Reese's Peanut Butter Cups. Now I think there's a way to access a bag or something here, but we're not going to bother with that. We're just going to explore this amazing toy store. And yeah, the shelves are a little less full than I would like. Perhaps this particular store was already starting to fall short on their stock supply. But here's something very cool, the video game section. When I was a kid, the only video games you could play were by Atari. You can get the Atari standard joystick up there. These are actual Atari cartridges. So Pitfall was an Activision game. One of the best games that ever came out for the Atari 2600. Pigs in Space, featuring Ms. Piggy. And then there were Us games like Picnic and Piece of Cake. Pickup was by 20th Century Fox. Phoenix. Blaster Patrol. I've not heard of that one. And then Pharaoh's Curse. And that's what the Atari 2600 shipped in. That's a later model of the 2600. There were a lot of prior versions available. Just going through, like, there's an entire library of games here. Now these... Oh, wow, it's the Pitfall. That is so cool. So that is the actual Pitfall ad for the Atari 2600. Now, you could play demos at the stores, just like it's got set up here. That's the old box right there, the Video Computer System by Atari box. This is amazing. It really, truly is. So we've got Alien. We've got so many different games. And this is mostly the way I remember it. Like, they would put things in alphabetical order. You can see all these games existed back in the day. So this is very, very cool to see, like the electronics section, essentially. There's the standard joysticks again. They also had paddles that you could play with. You can see them in the older box down there. And it does say UK, so again, I'm wondering if this is a person that lived in the United Kingdom. So yeah, the Atari section is very cool to see. There's a Qbert ad playing now. Like, I'm assuming this Retro Rabbit Ears is actually a YouTube channel or something. It's very cool to see, though. I will say, I have sound that I'm not playing back because I think it might be copywritten, to be perfectly honest. Everything in here feels like it might be a copyright violation of some form, but it makes me feel like a kid. It does sound a bit like the music that you'd hear overhead at one of the stores. So I was a Star Wars toy collector when I was a kid. I don't remember having the laser pistol or the Biker Scout laser pistol, but I definitely had this little Imperial Shuttle Pod 6. These were the smaller vehicles that you could purchase, and I ended up keeping those for a number of years. I may actually still have some of them in storage. I have a small storage unit just outside of my house. Armored Sentinel Transport. I didn't keep anything in boxes, though. These were all things that I played with as a toy. The Desert Sail Skiff. The B-Wing Fighter. Jabba the Hutt actually came with this little play set like this here. I can pick the box up so you can see it a little bit better. So you can move Jabba off and have the trap door open, and they could fall into the Sarlacc pit. Obviously, I'm sorry, the Rancor pit. So Jabba actually came on an action play set, and you could move Jabba aside and have someone fall through the trapdoor into the Rancor pit, except there was no pit. It was just like you could stick them in a cage, basically. It came with the little monkey there. Salacious Crumb, I believe, was his name. I love the detail on this. Now, obviously, there would have been a back of the box and not the same thing on all four sides, but pretty close to the real deal there, at least on the front side of the box. You got the Chewbacca bandolier strap, the Jabba the Hutt dungeon, the Snai Snoodles, and the Max Rebo band. It just says Rebo band. That's weird. I thought it said Max Rebo band when I was a kid. I want to look at the price tag on this box. Can't really read it, but it looks like it says maybe $9.99, and that would have included 3 figures and the little play accessories for them. This is so cool. There's the Imperial Shuttle. Now, that was a massive, massive toy, as was the AT-AT, as was the Ewok Village. But as you can see, the Ewok Village, where the Ewoks lived, was actually smaller than the Imperial Shuttle. The shuttle, for some reason, was, like, gigantic. I don't think it was for scale in the film. And then look at all these figures on their pegs. Like, I at one point had, I believe, every Star Wars figure. They came out with some toward the end that I had already like started to fade away from collecting. So I don't have characters like Yak Face, which was a later character. look at all of these Return of the Jedi figures. And we've got more play sets at the bottom here. The Imperial TIE Fighter, speeder bikes, TIE Interceptor up there. That was Darth Vader's vehicle. All these toys. This is so cool. And this is just the first part of an aisle here. Like, as we move on, now we've got Diaclone. I don't know what that is. Maybe that was a British toy. It looks almost like a knockoff of the Transformers. Yeah, these look like toy knockoffs, essentially. You've got some Advanced Dungeons and Dragons figures. Dragon Riders of the Styx. Lots of action figures. And that's something that you saw a lot, were knockoff action figures. So War Heroes was a knockoff of the old G.I. Joe toys. Megadons. Mantech. Like, these are all things, again, that I'm sure are based on real toys. Weenies. Never heard of those. So some of these, like I said, might be references to British toys that I'm not used to. Because I didn't have them in my own locale. But these are very cool to see. The Other World. Battle for the Peer Uncas. Like, this is sweet to basically walk down the aisle of a Toys R Us store. Like, this is really what a Toys R Us was like. And some of these toys are just open, laying in the back. When I was a kid, I'd pick up toys like that were laying around. And obviously, the goal was that you would purchase those toys that are laying around, even if they're out of the package. Hot Wheels. Yeah, Hot Wheels had their own aisles. It was a construction site. And I would pick up the toys, and my mom would always just, like, sneak them away from me and leave them at the counters. Matchbox was the competitor to Hot Wheels back in the day. I think I had more Matchbox cars. And they called them Matchbox cars because they fit in a Matchbox. You can get Matchbooks still, but Matchbox are kind of a thing of the past. Let's see. Glow Racers. That's cool. So it's like a glow-in-the-dark racetrack. And, of course, the old Hot Wheels courses, Dash and Crash, where you'd have two cars go through the loop-de-loop and then try to crash into each other. Like, these are all things that legitimately... like, I had that exact 48 car carrying case for my Hot Wheels and Matchbox cars. This is insane. I am really, really digging this. This is so cool. So let's look here. Some Gremlins toys. Gremlins was a film. Gizmo, this little Mogwai character, was the most popular thing that came from that film. They actually had a sequel film. I think they're actually working on a third one still to this day. It's probably in development hell. And then some licensed characters. So Snorks was an animated show. Q*bert was a video game. Heathcliff was a show as well. And then Glow Ghosts was another show. Like, these are all things that are based on things that really don't exist anymore, but as a child, like, these were a big deal. The Chipmunks, they're still making movies and things out of that, but nothing like the old cartoons from my youth. So this is all real toys. Obviously, like I said, the boxes really are just the fronts of the boxes recreated. The A-Team classic 80s television show. And they've got basically all of the figures out here by Galoob. These are legit figures. Obviously, they didn't say figurerealm.com on them, but those assets are legit. And that's the whole A-Team there. And then Mr. T's wrestling figure right next to it. I mean, they really programmed everything in on their shelves. They've got Mr. T and Mr. T as an actor, as B.A. Baracus. This is super cool. So some of this is actually like Mexican and Spanish. Some of this is U.S. Some of this is UK based, but lots of toys that are very cool. Riptide was another TV show. Airwolf was another TV show. So all these licensed properties in their own aisle here. Strike Force, Star Trek figures, Tarzan figures. And then Michael Jackson had his own doll line. That was actually legit too. They all came with that single glove like Michael Jackson wore. Indiana Jones and Dune. Now these figures might look a little different to the characters in Dune if you've only watched the more recent Dune film. Look at that sandworm. That's crazy. But this is based on the old Dune from the 80s. Obviously, everything here is based on the 80s. This is so cool. And then some more. These are more GoBot types toys, which were similar in a lot of ways to Transformers. Yeah, there's the actual GoBots here. I had those because they cost less than Transformers. Voltron, another big franchise from back in the day. Zybots, which again were kind of like a knockoff brand. And then we had Flexatron and more Advanced Dungeons and Dragons figures. Filling space, essentially. Black Star was another animated series that they had lots of toys for. Prior to He-Man, which may actually be in another aisle here, we got the wrestling superstars. So back in the day, the WWF, which later became WWE, was a huge deal, and Hulk Hogan was kind of their poster child, like the most famous actor. They made animated series like Rockin' Wrestling, I think was the animated series, and they made these toys that were kind of posable, just chunks of rubber basically. It's so cool to see all these toys. Now they still make modern day pro wrestling figures, but nothing like these ones. These were really just hunks of plastic. Couldn't really pose them, couldn't really do much with them. But you could collect your favorite stars. So like if I walked up to these, I could collect an Andre the Giant or a Big John Studd. As I look at these, I don't know. Some of my favorites might be here, actually. Those are bendable ones. Looking at these, unfortunately, most of my wrestling heroes came after these ones. They even have manager figures. That's cool. So lots and lots of cool memories here. Go back to that G.I. Joe aisle in a moment. The Infaceables. Sectars. Now these look a lot like that looks like a Snake Mountain there. The hive up there. What's this here? Wheeled Warriors. And then these, the Superpowers figures. So this was a series of figures based on DC Comics characters. I think there may have been a television tie-in as well, but I had all of them in the Hall of Justice and the Batmobile and the Lexor 7. All of this stuff I had when I was a kid. And then I also had these Marvel Secret Wars figures. I didn't know anything about Marvel Comics. I collected them because of the visuals and because they were comic characters. I didn't know anything except for maybe Spider-Man. And I think they even had a TV series for Secret Wars back as a kid. But I collected the figures. I never got any of the play sets for the Secret Wars. I don't know if I got all of the figures either. I just thought some of them were really cool looking. So I got them, and then I'd play with them in the Hall of Justice and use them in the Batmobile and the Lexor 7 and so forth. It was very cool. This is so cool to reminisce on my childhood. Just like, boom, it's all right here. This is really awesome. So G.I. Joe was the centerpiece of my toy collection as a kid. I had Global Wars, basically, in my dining room as a child. I would incorporate He-Man figures. I would incorporate Star Wars figures. I don't think I ever pulled in the superheroes, but G.I. Joe versus Cobra became G.I. Joe versus Cobra versus Transformers versus He-Man versus Star Wars. It was crazy. And it was so cool to just unlock the power of my imagination as a child playing with toys. And now, of course, toys have kind of gone to the wayside. We've got video games, and we've got things like this that occupy our time. Action figures are now collectibles as opposed to things that you take out of the package and play with. But walking down this aisle is amazing. It really, truly is. Like, seeing all of these toys that I either had, like I had that command center, and that would be my base of operations, and that would be where the good guys lived. And I'd have on the other wall, I'm going to walk to in a moment, I noticed already kind of at a glance, I had Snake Mountain as the enemy base, which is where Cobra and Skeletor would live. Like, this is all legit. I'm wondering if they have one particular toy. We're gonna look at this back wall here with more GI Joe stuff, because I'm curious. There was one toy that was enormous, and I'm hoping that it's captured here. If it's not, I will explain it anyway. But I'm gonna go down this aisle and look for it. I had almost all of these toys. Again, not everything. But as a kid, I loved G.I. Joe. So they don't seem to have it, but they had this 5-foot-long monstrosity of an aircraft carrier that would actually take the stock planes and gliders and things that you could get for the G.I. Joe figures. I can't even find any planes, actually. Oh, there's one over here. So, like, this Cobra plane is an example. You could actually take that big plane toy and land it on this aircraft carrier. It was massive. And my neighbors actually got one, and we would go over to their house because there was no way my family would buy me one of these things and play with it. So let's go down the next aisle here. And I noticed there's a bike rack and things like that. We'll go to that in a few minutes. So we've got, on the outside here, we've got She-Ra, Princess of Power. Now, my sister collected these, and I stole her figures because She-Ra was based off of He-Man, which I collected, so I would actually intermix the toys. We've got the Transformers over here, the official Transformers, as opposed to the knockoffs that I had over there. Up there, and there's actually one down here. I'm going to grab it. My favorite of the Transformers was this one right here, if I can pull it out. This is Soundwave. And he was a Decepticon, which is an evil character, but he came as a cassette deck. And you could actually eject the cassette deck here and put this little cassette in, and they both transformed into robots. It was super cool. This one's got even the back on it. This is super sweet. I really, really am digging the experience of exploring here. Of course, you've got Optimus Prime there. You've got Megatron. All of the early generations. That's what Bumblebee used to look like, is that little yellow car there. And here's the Masters of the Universe. This is He-Man and the Masters of the Universe. This is another one that I was obsessed with as a kid. There's Snake Mountain. There it is. That was my base of operations for the evil characters when I was a kid. Look at even the graphics on the outside of these boxes. You don't get that kind of stuff anymore. It looks nothing like what's inside, to be perfectly honest, but very, very cool. So cool. There were 3 packs of figures. I don't think I ever got those. I always got them one at a time individually. All right, I'm distracted. Bike racks. I worked in the toy department at Walmart for a while. Bike assembly and putting the bikes on these racks was horrifying sometimes because you could always drop them or hurt yourself. I never did, luckily, but it's kind of a joy to work in a toy department after playing with toys as a kid for so long. Pretty good experience. Barbie always had huge aisles like this one we're about to walk into. Some more She-Ra, Princess of Power toys here. And then I'm assuming these are going to be like knockoffs. Oh, My Little Pony and Pretty Pets, which were the knockoff of My Little Pony. That makes sense. My Little Pony, of course, now has the bronies. And then here's some Barbie toys. Barbie and her boyfriend sometimes, Ken, and Skipper and Todd and all of these other characters. I think they all still exist in some semblance. There's a Care Bear randomly mixed in with the Barbie toys. I wonder if somebody misplaced that on the wrong aisle. I see some Care Bears over there, so that's very possible. And that's something that you would commonly find in a toy department as well, or a toy store as well, is items that were misplaced. Maybe the kid found something else they wanted better, so they put the other thing down there. So this has both the Care Bears and the Care Bear cousins. Care Bears was an animated series. They still sell the toys, but I don't think they really have anything to market behind them anymore. Cabbage Patch Kids the same way. These were dolls. I forget the guy's name that created the Cabbage Patch doll. I think his name was like Xavier Harris or something. But the cool thing that came with the Cabbage Patch doll is each of them had an actual adoption certificate. And you could send it in and get it like certified. So you're adopting this child from the Cabbage Patch. It was a huge craze for a while. I remember waiting at a store like overnight or something to get one when I was a kid. Because my mom was like, I got to get this in-demand toy for your sister. The Dream Vet for Ken, and Barbie's Silver Corvette. Again, they got another random birthday bear mixed in with these Barbie toys. Let's see. What's on the other side here? I don't think I know this one. Rose Petal Place. They kind of remind me of Strawberry Shortcake. I don't know if we're going to run into those. Another thing that my sister collected as a kid. I'm not familiar with any of these. There's Rainbow Bright, which is another cartoon series. It's very cool to see those here. I think they still sell some of these for nostalgia purposes. And then we've got the Get Along Gang. Short-lived television series, at least here in the U.S. I don't know if it lasted longer elsewhere, but they did have the Clubhouse Caboose. These look like Power Wheels, little toy cars that you could ride on. They were motorized. Obviously, they don't look photorealistic there, but definitely existed. And what do we have here in this aisle? We've got Enchanted Horses in the Enchanted Kingdom, a ballerina toy. Wow, Boy George and Punky Brewster alongside each other. Cool stuff. All right, and then we've got a couple more aisles here. This is Glow Bugs, which were glow in the dark. They were really for toddlers, but I remember those. The Doozers were from Fraggle Rock. Herself the Elf. All of these toys really existed, and it's very cool to see them on a virtual shelf and be able to relive some of those experiences. Menudo was a band. That's Ricky Martin, believe it or not, right there. Right there. He was in Menudo as a child. And then there was always a plush toy aisle. Their plush toy aisle it's just really a big photo of plush toys. But this is what a Toys R Us location really would have looked like. And it's very cool to see. There's even a book section here. Bunch of Disney books, some little golden books, Choose Your Own Adventure books, Well-Loved Tales books, Berenstain Bears books. Still trying to figure out what the correct spelling was for Berenstain. This is so cool. Richard Scarry books. I remember all of these. Little golden books, yes. Little golden books were another thing that kind of disappeared for a while and came back. So yeah, all of this stuff would have been in an actual Toys R Us store. And of course you had the front register area here. At the front registers, one of the most important things were that all toys, batteries were not included. So they always had huge racks of batteries at the front to power your toys. I think that's probably about it. That's the experience of walking through a Toys R Us And it's pretty close to when I was a child, honestly. It really is. So now, there's more. We can leave the Toys R Us here. There's a Patreon to support this project over there. That's very, very cool. I may actually contribute because this is quite cool. There's a Jazzercise here. That was an actual like dance studio. Basically, you had a trainer teaching kids and sometimes adults, almost all female, exercises to like 80s jazz music. But on the other side of the parking lot is the other piece, the Blockbuster Video. Now, when I was a kid, we had both Blockbuster Video and Hollywood Video. And the concept of renting films on VHS cassettes or later DVDs, obviously this is going to be VHS, was something that you could do. They always had previews playing over there on the TVs for some of their more recent films. And then they were divided up into sections. So this is comedies. And I've heard of some of these, not others. I'm just looking to pick one out that I might have enjoyed in my youth. I didn't watch a lot of... The Muppet Movie, definitely. I watched that. Cannonball Run. I've heard of some of these movies, but I wasn't really into comedies. I was always really into sci-fi. But I'm going to tell a story as I'm walking through here. I loved Hollywood Video, didn't really care much for Blockbuster Video, but I had a Blockbuster card. And when I moved out here to California, it's kind of in the last years of Blockbuster. There's not a lot in this store yet. But we rented something, and we took it back. And then after we took it back, we got a phone call a couple of days later saying that we owed all of this money for a film that we never returned. And the film was a Mary-Kate and Ashley Olsen movie that they made. These are mostly James Bond films. I again, not really into a lot of these. I liked Princess Purple Rain from this particular shelf. But we had not rented this Mary-Kate and Ashley Olsen film. So I actually took my card in and said, I'm not paying you for something I didn't rent. But you can have my card back. I don't feel like I'm ever going to come back to this Blockbuster. And sure enough, Blockbuster died shortly thereafter. They never came after me for funds for a movie I didn't rent. But I don't have the card anymore because I gave it to them as opposed to keeping them for myself. I guess these might just be films from before my time because, in the early 80s, I was still a little kid. Because I'm not recognizing most of these titles. But these are definitely all real films. And these are real film boxes. VHS was a hugely popular medium. In fact, they still sell VHS cassettes today. Horror films, again, another thing I was never into, really. But it's cool to walk through these video store shelves and kind of relive, again, experiences from when I was a kid. My mom really liked Stephen King, so I've seen Firestarter. I've seen some of his films. Phantasm is a classic as well. But a lot of these, like this Embryo and Death Race 2000, like a lot of these movies I've never heard of. Science fiction, it looks like the shelves are bare, unfortunately. That's the section I was hoping would have a ton of material. I keep walking into the shelf, which is why it's sort of fading in and out for a moment there. Ghostbusters is now showing, which means you could probably rent it. Yeah, there's a whole shelf that you can rent of Ghostbusters. So here's the super popular films at the time. Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, definitely seen that. Dune, we've already talked about. I've seen Ghostbusters, 2010, A Space Odyssey. This is Odyssey 2, I think was what it was called. The Year We Made Contact. And then The Terminator, which became a huge franchise. And Gremlins, which we talked about earlier. A Never-Ending Story was a classic as well. Now, these are the films. This back wall are the films that I grew up with as a kid. as opposed to the ones that are on the other shelves, which I didn't really know much about. Red Dawn, I've never seen. It's come up in the news rather frequently recently because it was apparently like a huge right-wing, like, get your guns and protect America kind of film. Nightmare on Elm Street is the first of the Freddy Krueger series. I did see that as a child. It gave me some nightmares of its own. And then The Neverending Story and The Last Starfighter. Gary Whitta, who wrote a recent Star Wars film, Rogue One, is trying to get a sequel to The Last Starfighter out into the world. That would be very cool. So this is the Blockbuster Video. And you actually can take things from these stores back to your room, driving in that car over there, which is really just a push button in this world, which I think is super cool. I don't think I can, yeah, I can't walk through the window. I was curious about that. But this is a pretty realistic replica of what back in the 80s it would have been like to visit a toy store and a video rental store. Now, outside of the US and Canada, you might have had different names for these types of things, but you definitely had video rental stores, you definitely had toy stores. And seeing this in virtual reality, seeing this type of recreation, this type of historical references, if you will, is amazing. So hats off to the folks behind the TRU VR experience. This is available on itch.io. I will put a link in the description. Until next time, I hope you've enjoyed this video. I will be back with more content soon. Thanks for watching. Get out there and enjoy some VR for yourself. Bye-bye now.